Hello fantastic creatures, I'm Fantasims, and today I'll show you how I built this dystopian post-apocalyptic version of the famous Disney castle. Now this build is mostly finished, I just need your help figuring out what to do with the interior, and then it needs a few exterior finishing touches. But I'm turning this work in progress build into a video for several reasons. First, it takes me forever to build large lots like this, and many of you have requested I do more work in progress videos, so you can see what I'm up to instead of waiting months until I'm finally finished. And I have like 50 of these kinds of videos just sitting on my computer, so if this is something you enjoy, I can do way more work in progress videos like this in the future as well. Second, my air conditioner is broken and my house is a freaking sauna right now, and my computer will overheat if I try to build in The Sims or make videos this week until the repair person can fix it, and luckily today is one of the cooler days of the weeks, so I'm taking advantage of it and making a video with whatever material I have. Hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. Like, I'm literally a sticky mess right now, laying flat on my bed like a squished starfish, doing this voiceover. I am too British for this Amazonian weather. Also, my hair is so frizzy, it's sticking up like a troll doll. Do you guys remember those? I remember as a kid thinking they were the most amazing toys, and the ones with gemstones in their bellies, oh my goodness, I would freaking lose my mind over those ones. My friend had one and I was so jealous because I wanted a gem belly troll so bad. Man, kids are so weird. Like, troll dolls are basically naked pruny old men looking things, and just slap on a cheap plastic gem on the gut and we went wild. It makes no sense. Like, wow, look at this pruny baby man doll, isn't it so magical? No, it's like something out of a horror movie. So that has nothing to do with this Disney castle build, although someone could probably make a link between Disney and pruny man babies. I don't know. I've gone yampy and this video is getting derailed before it's even begun. So anyway, the third reason for sharing a work in progress video before I've completed the build is, oh crap, there was a third reason, but now I've forgotten what it is. Oh well, so I've been hesitant to split builds into two videos because it works for some channels but it doesn't for others, but I'm throwing caution to the wind because I'm too sticky and sweaty to care right now, and I figure whether it works for my channel or not, it works for my brain because I'm always jumping around projects. I'm gonna call it restless brain syndrome. Sometimes I wake up in a sci-fi mood one day and a fantasy one the next, and sometimes within one day I'll jump between 5 different builds because I can't figure out what kind of mood I'm in, and none of them appeal to me, and then I usually get inspired like 2 hours before bed when it's kind of too late to dig into a project. My brain is just super inconvenient like that, and I know there's probably a lot of you who can relate. Like, how do we even function? Well anyway, so this build first started out with me trying to make a pretty version of the castle from Disney World with the bright pinks and blues and golds, and it just got renovated in real life recently, so it's super vivid looking now. And I've been to Disney World and Disneyland a few times, so I know the general feel for the layout of the castle, but as I was looking at images online, I came across the famous street artist Banksy and how they created this pop-up piece rather, called Dismaland, and I don't know if Banksy was trying to make a political statement about Disney, but they literally built a creepy, haunted carnival type of vibe of a mini Disneyland where everything looks super grungy and trippy. Of course, the police forced them to break it down because it was built on an abandoned lot that doesn't belong to Banksy. But anyway, it inspired me to turn the Disney castle into something from a post-apocalyptic future, where maybe there were some runaway kids who came across the abandoned castle and set up a home in the ruins, and then over time they've built it up and added some scrap pieces to fortify the castle, and maybe it's like a couple generations later and it's now a thriving city. I need these kinds of stories for my builds to help me focus on how to decorate it, because it helps me make choices between objects. So like, ever since I was a kid, my brain shuts down if I'm given too many options. Like, I remember my mum took me to the corner store to get some sweeties when I was a kid, and I was so overwhelmed by all the choices that I became really upset and said I didn't want anything because I was too overwhelmed. But deep down inside I really wanted some sweets, but I just couldn't think with all those bright colors and just all the different options. And so I left the store with no sweets and I wanted to cry because I kept saying I didn't want anything, but I really wanted something, and my mum pulled out a tube of Smarties, which for my American friends, they're like M&Ms, but they taste way better. And she said, "Here, I got you these," and I can't remember whether she gave me hers or whether she brought an extra one knowing that my behavior was suspicious. But either way, my mum is amazing and she knew I was struggling to make a decision, so she made one for me so I didn't miss out. And I've been like that my whole life. Not with sweets, but like in general. I hate shopping because there's just too many choices. And I'm kind of like that in The Sims, where I'm lucky enough to own all the packs, but there are just so many objects that if I don't come up with a story to help narrow my focus on what objects to use, I end up trying to use like all of them. And then it turns into an episode of Hoarders, and I get so overwhelmed I give up on the build altogether. But to be honest, I still do that even when I have a story and I limit the objects I use. I just get to a point where I get too overwhelmed and move on to another build. Hence why I have over 50 of these kinds of builds recorded and sitting unfinished in my computer. So I've tried to fight it and force myself to stick with a project until it's finished, but it just makes me stressed and miserable, so I'm just gonna roll with it, and hopefully it doesn't frustrate you guys too much to see so many unfinished project videos like this. But hey, just imagine how much worse it is to live like this. Anyway, part of the problem is that, as you guys probably have heard if you've watched any of my other videos, I do have pretty bad ADD, and I used to take a large dose of Adderall for years, but I had to stop because I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and severe chronic fatigue syndrome, and for some reason like stimulants like Adderall make those conditions so much worse and give me these weird nervous system convulsions and a bunch of other unpleasant reactions. So my brain is unmedicated and wild, and I can't focus to save my life. Like this voiceover I'm doing right now. What am I even blabbing about? I'm amazed you guys listen to me at all, so thank you for your sacrifice to put up with my shenanigans and yet be so nice to me. Seriously, you guys are the most generous with all your amazing comments. I'm blown away every time. Don't choke me up like that. I'm already dripping with sweat right now. I don't need to be crying as well. Okay, so maybe we should actually talk about the build right now. So already, as you can see, I came up with the shell, and to be honest, when I first created this build, I really didn't like it, and it took a while for it to grow on me. And I think a lot of it too was with the Disney castle, all of the towers that surround the building or the main castle part, they're all pretty much a similar height. And you can kind of get away with it in a real build, but with The Sims, you guys know, when you create everything with the same exact level, it just, I don't know, the shape just doesn't look good. So it was suggested, I wish I could remember who suggested it, but it was suggested on Twitter that I change the heights of the different towers. And I figured, at first, the reason I didn't do it at first is because I was trying to make it look as accurate to the original castle as possible, but I was thinking, this is the dystopian future, so I can pretty much do what I want. So long as it has the overall silhouette of the Disney castle, I figured, hey, I can change it up. So I later changed the heights of the towers, and then I ended up liking it a lot better. So I was jumping around at first trying to figure out how to construct the towers, and because I use so many debug objects and just objects in general on this build, I decided to actually create these not kind of like pre-made towers where I don't actually use the Sims walls, and I decided to do it from the basement up. That way the object footprints wouldn't interfere with anything I put in the above floors. The only problem that I ran into by doing that, it has the outdoor lighting, so then when it came to decorating the inside of the first floor, I had to really come up with a creative way to hide it. So you'll see at the end of this video, I'll give you like a quick mini tour of what I've done so far. And I managed to hide all of the objects like you see here that have the outdoor lighting. So it ended up working out, but I just wanted to create these pre-made towers, and I used the cone shape at the top that I did for the roofing. Well, first of all, I used Arnie's Pro Build mod. It's an old mod that he created where you can change the heights of the roofing to as high as you want them, which is really awesome. It is a bit glitchy though, because this mod was created before half walls were introduced to the game. So I noticed that if you try and build with half walls, it does create some glitches with them. So what I usually do is I will put the roof heights that I want with the mod installed, and then I'll exit out the game, remove the mod from my folder, and then go back into the game and finish the rest of it, just so it doesn't create any unnecessary glitches. Other than half walls, it really doesn't seem to mess with anything. I hope one day he updates the mod so that there aren't any glitches, but it works pretty decently. So if you want roofing at any height, then I recommend you use that mod. Anyway, I tried using these debug objects, like the live edit objects, where I think it's from Get Famous or one of those packs, where it's one of the buildings from the world. And I used that because I thought it would just be a quick way to hide the foundation of the castle. Because, you know, they don't give us any good swatches for foundations. We can't even match foundations to the walls that we, like the kind of bricks or whatever that we already have. So they really need to fix up the way that foundations work. But anyway, so I always try to hide them. So I originally used those live edit objects buildings. And I ended up deleting them later because they were just too chunky and they were just getting in the way of, I think, the first floor or something like that. And then I just found a bunch of objects from different packs that look like scaffolding, and the bridges I'm rotating right here and putting around as like the scaffolding poking through. You know how when concrete kind of crumbles and you can see the metal rods or whatever that are used to hold the concrete together in the center? I wanted it to have that kind of look where there's scaffolding on the outside and maybe some of the inside scaffolding is poking through. Well, anyway, that's actually from another mod by Arnie that I've talked about before called the World Edit mod, and he has unlocked a bunch of debug objects. They are not custom content, they are debug objects that are already inside the game. It's just for whatever reason the Sims team have not released those debug objects to us to use through the normal cheats like show live edit objects and the debug objects cheat. So you could only get them through his mod, but I do have a bunch of them posted in my gallery, and I'll be posting even more because I've been finding a lot more of them lately. So anyway, I've just been playing with them, and the cool thing is that a lot of those bridges can be rotated on the side, so that's what I did for the scaffolding. And then I also used these crumbly arches from Journey to Batuu, and I don't care what people think, Journey to Batuu is one of my favourite packs, and the builder objects are just absolutely incredible. So I use a ton of those kinds of objects. And then I thought, because we can't build above 4 floors, and the Disney castle has that really tall tower, well, all the towers are pretty tall, but like it has that one really big one, I decided to make like a fake tower so it goes above the 4 stories. And I used the concrete drainage thingies from Eco Lifestyle. And I must have missed some footage because look, it just jumps right ahead to where I've already layered a bunch of objects, so I apologize for that. I don't know what happened to the footage. I know I recorded it, but anyway. So I just use like fountains and anything from the game that already has those similar stone colors. And I love vampires, tombstones, yes. So the debug tombstones, I love them. I love using them in builds, and so I use them as kind of a wall trim, and you'll see me use it around the castle later on in general. And then I used from, I think it was Romantic Gardens, I used the fountain as a trim at the very top of the tower. You can kind of see it at the top of the screen right now. And then covered it with ivy and planks of wood just to make it look grungy and old. And then I later slapped that onto the top of the castle just to give it that height that it needs to have that silhouette for the Disney castle. And I love grungy objects, so I hope that with future packs we get more weathered and worn looking stuff, because I just love building with that kind of stuff. And so then I just kept adding details to these towers by adding arches, adding things that kind of look castle-y, so it doesn't look exactly like the Disney castle. But my thought was, this is so far into the future, the dystopian future, that a lot of things about the castle have changed since then, so it kind of gave me the freedom to do whatever I want. So these are the vampire tombstone, like the debug tombstone things that you can use. And this is me using the toolmod before toolmod now works in build mode. So I'm using it in live mode, so I had to jump between live mode and build mode a lot, but it makes me realize just how easy it is to use toolmod now. So I'm so thankful that TwistedMexi made it available in build mode, because it's just so much easier. So I was creating these top pieces, and as you can see, all the towers are a very similar height, and it just didn't have a good silhouette. So I don't think I recorded myself doing it because it just would have made the footage too long, but I later selected, there's this thing called toggle select with the toolmod, where that's where it all gets highlighted green, and you click on all the objects you want to include in the group, and then you can move them as one entire unit. And so I did that, and it just made it so much easier to move all the towers around. And then I was just trying to find stuff to hide the foundation. So the backs of I think it's Get Famous, but I think Cats and Dogs and some other packs have these billboards, and the back of the billboards have scaffolding on them. So I faced them backwards and elevated them up from the basement so that it looked like there was some scaffolding, and then I used more of the Journey to Batuu rock arches to hide the foundation as much as possible. Because this castle is so huge, I figured I'm not going to do a basement for it. I mean, I might, but there's already so many rooms to decorate, so I figured it doesn't matter if from a basement level it looks super messy and cluttered with all of these objects. So then I added even more things to put at the top of the tower, and some of them were from Snowy Escape, those little, I don't even know what they are, maybe those are tombstone thingies too, but they're those little stone decorative, the grey things that I have layered green, or that I just showed as green. And the cool thing is that there are some objects that if you try to rotate them with the tool mod, they just go skinnier because they're not designed to be rotated. And so what I did is I rotated them to make them skinnier so that they're not so chunky, and that way they looked more spiky, if that made any sense whatsoever, just to make them skinnier and put them on the top. And it was starting to look really, I don't know, this is the part where I didn't like it anymore because I think I just had a mismatch of too many colors, and I'm a very monochromatic person. Like visually I just like when everything's kind of a similar color, especially when it comes to architecture, like a castle or a stone building or a historic building or something like that. And so I think because I was mixing tan colors with the light grey, and it just looked a bit jumbled. And even though, like, if you've got a building that's filled with like mismatched objects from scraps that you've put together, you're probably going to get a bunch of random colors put together. But I don't know, I just really wasn't loving it. So it took me a while to finally tie everything together. And so it was just a matter of just continuing to find more objects with similar colors and just putting them together in a way where they'd kind of go and blend in together. But here I'm just I was looking at a lot of reference pictures to try and figure out where to shape all of the towers. And you guys know with building in The Sims, because we can only build walls on like straight angles or a 45-degree diagonal angle, it makes it very difficult when you're trying to build a castle that has walls that are tilted at slightly different angles. You have to kind of visually recreate that with objects, or try and fudge it by figuring out how you can reshape it to kind of look similar with the kind of angles that we can already create in the game. If that, I'm just blabbing on. I'm probably not making any sense, but so I was just trying to create the levels and all the different layers, and thankfully we have the platform tool, which I really love using, even though it is super glitchy and it creates weird shadows in builds. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. I mean, basements already create weird shadows inside of rooms, but now the platforms are adding weird shadows inside of, like, with objects and coloring and everything. So it's not always fun to work with, but I am glad that we do have the platform tool, because it does help create some height beyond the 4th floor if you want to create towers that are just a bit taller. And then here's me trying to create some more towers with, these are some debug objects from Eco Lifestyle. And Eco Lifestyle has some amazing industrial objects that I love to use. And so I was just really layering objects on top of each other to try and make it look like a mix between ancient stone mixed with industrial scaffolding, and I just mirrored the same kinds of objects that I had already used for the other towers and tried to just use them in a slightly different way. And so I flipped, you just saw me flip the fountain upside down so that you get the stone trim of the fountain without the actual water feature. And then more of these towers from Strangerville that I used as scaffolding for roofing. The only bummer is it has that top flat piece that ends up creating a bit of a weird star shape. But you know what? You work with what you have. And it's kind of funny because even though earlier I said that I get overwhelmed with all the objects that we have in the game, at the same time, how is it that we have so many objects, but we never have the object we need for certain builds? You know what I mean? Like, I'm always trying to find a kind of object to do a build, and I never quite have it, and that's why I go nuts trying to create my own custom objects by layering a bunch of things on top of each other. And then here's me trying to, I don't know, come up with some sort of shape to help blend the rounded shape of the towers into the square shape that I had created here. So I just came up with this idea to take the fountain and just make it go a bit smaller and smaller and smaller, so it kind of creates a bit of a cone shape that helps it blend into it. I don't know, I make stuff up as I go along. Like, I just look at the problem and I say, oh, this looks ugly, how am I going to blend this together? I have no idea, let's just experiment. And most of the things I build are just me experimenting and having no clue what I'm doing. And usually, I think the reason why I have a hard time recording myself speed building, or like building for speed build footage, is that I change my mind so many times that I end up with so much footage, because I build something and then I delete a bunch of things and then I build it again, and then, you know, so I end up with hours and hours of footage. And that's why I made a decision, and I talked about this in my last video, that going forward I'm probably not going to be recording myself with speed build footage. I mean, I already have this recorded, and I have tons of speed build footage already recorded for other builds on my computer, which I'm going to use. But it's just so stressful for me because my brain just doesn't think that way. I'm all over the place. I jump from one side to the other. And when you speed it up real fast, like, I actually didn't speed this up as fast as I normally do, because I know some of you have commented that it makes you like motion sick, because I have to speed them up so fast because it takes me so long to build stuff. So I end up with so much footage because I take hours and hours to build. So I slowed this one down a bit, but even like if I were to build just the way that comes naturally to me, I jump all over the place. Like, because my ADD, I'll start building one thing and it'll trigger an idea to jump over to the other one before I finish that area. And when you speed that up in footage, it's just really hard to watch. So this one I don't think looks too bad. I think hopefully you can kind of follow what I'm doing. But yeah, so I don't know. I know that speed builds are helpful because you get a sense of the process that I went through to create these kinds of things, but it's really hard for me to record myself doing this kind of thing. So I don't know what my videos are going to look like in the future, but hey, it's all just one big experiment, and hopefully we'll figure something out together that works. I always appreciate your guys' feedback on what to do. But anyway, so pretty much the main shape of this build is done, and I'm just adding some crumbly bits all over, like, and this is what I still need to finish because we're drawing towards the end of the speed build portion of this video, where I've pretty much built most of it, but I do need to go around and just fill in some of those blank areas. And there are tons of details, and one of the problems with the way that I build is that I know that I come up with really creative ways to build things compared to maybe, like, I know this, I'm only going based off of your guys' comments, that a lot of you are like, man, you pack so much detail in your builds. Part of the problem with that is that I end up with so many details that it then becomes very difficult to hide things that are poking through walls, or because it creates problems when you try and pack this many details into something, because I try and build in a way that doesn't really come naturally to The Sims, because it's not the fantasy game of my dreams, and I want to turn it into the fantasy game of my dreams. And I don't like how the game is just, I don't know, building in it just feels very boxy, and I like things to look a bit more organic and three-dimensional. And I don't know, the walls, like the sim walls, are like paper thin and it doesn't feel realistic, so I try and chunk everything up. But in chunking everything up, it makes problems like things poking through and interfering with Sims footpaths and having to rearrange everything. And I think that's what ends up taking so long to build. And this whole issue of outdoor lighting with objects poking through walls, and so then I have to spend ages trying to find objects to hide those objects, you know, all that kind of stuff. So here I at first was going to leave the outdoor lighting on the inside as well, so that I didn't have to try and hide the objects that are poking through the walls. But as you'll see in a second, I later change my mind on that because I just didn't like the way that it looked. I wanted it to have dark, grungy lighting inside. So we're wrapping up this exterior. I'm just using some debug objects from Journey to Batuu because I'm trying to create this marketplace outside. And I haven't finished this area, but I'm just trying to make it look like scrap, like a post-apocalyptic city. And now we are going to jump over and I'm going to give you a quick tour of what I've done so far. And maybe you guys can give me some feedback on what I can include to improve this build. Okay, so here we are, guys. This is the castle so far. I'm going to try and make this quick because my computer is really hot right now. Hopefully the fan noise isn't too loud, but this is the silhouette of the castle so far. So I think all the towers look better with all the different heights like this now. And here's a more close-up shot. I'm probably going to make some changes, like I'm going to change these windows because I don't think they look dystopian enough. And it does look a bit messy in places, so I need to go in and touch up areas. I just plopped this there because I was trying to figure out ways that I could fill in these tower pieces. Sorry, whatever these beams of light are from Eco Lifestyle are kind of blocking the details, but that's the back of it. And the Disney castle is kind of asymmetrical, like the tunnel that goes inside the castle is off to the side. And so let's zoom around to the front and let's go into live mode because look at this, guys. Look at these special effects. These are actually from Arnie's World Edit mod that I talked about earlier, and they are not considered custom content. They are just debug objects that we haven't got access to normally in the game. And so I will make them available as a lot. I will try and find all of them and put them together on one lot because when you try and save them as a room, it's invisible and you can't see them. But look at this. I sized these down, but these are little thunderstorm clouds. Look how cool that is. And they just circle around with little lightning strikes. It looks a lot cooler at night, but we are in the daytime right now. And then look at this Aurora Borealis right here. You can add that to your lots. It's so cool. And I think I'm going to add this slimy green water, the polluted water from Eco Lifestyle. I think I'm going to put it over here so it's like this nasty sewage type water coming out of the castle. And then here's the pathway that leads up into the castle. It looks like it's been walled off, but you can, oops, let me remove that. You can actually walk through it. There's no footprint here, so your Sims will actually walk through that wall. And then over here, I'm thinking of doing a marketplace area, so have some market stalls, stuff like that. And then, I don't know, maybe not much else kind of fits on this side, but I don't know, maybe a waterfall, maybe a camping ground. I don't know what to put there. And then those little thunderstorm clouds, I was thinking, someone made the suggestion on Twitter that I liked, that in addition to this being like sci-fi dystopian, it might be cool to incorporate some magic elements because it's the Disney castle. So I thought at the very top floor, maybe we can make this a magical area. And so even though the thunder clouds kind of go dark when you put them indoors, I still think it has a cool effect that can look cool for, I keep saying cool, I have no words, I'm still a hot sweaty mess, guys. Like it's a neat special effect to put on top of the cauldron. So I just shrunk it down real tiny, and then inside, if I move this out the way, oh, I have two of them, I forgot. Look at this. This is from Strangerville, and it's I think this is over where the secret lab is or whatever it is, and it glows in the dark, which is really neat. So yeah, I'm thinking like a secret special magical lab or something up here. I have no idea how to decorate it, and the rocks are poking through the walls, which when it was completely dark it didn't really matter that much, but I don't know if I like the way that looks with the outdoor lighting of the rocks on the inside. You guys can let me know what you think. It looks a bit messy, that's the thing. I've cluttered so many objects that it does look a bit messy, so I do need to neaten it up, and I think that's the thing that's making it take forever to finish. And look at all these floors that I have. But I thought I'd kind of just make them look like ruins, and then I started turning these from Journey to Batuu. They're like the debug, I think this is one of the buildings from like the First Order or whatever. But anyway, the footprint is so tiny that you can use it as like a little chamber for the beds. I'm just trying to find quick ways to decorate it, because one of the things I have a hard time with decorating in Sims is stuff to put on the walls. I wish we had big objects that you can just clip onto the walls that just give you instant detail. Kind of like how, like, think about Renaissance. I love the Renaissance style of those super ornate walls. Like if we had stuff like that you can just clip onto the wall and you instantly have three-dimensional detail. Oh, it would save so much time decorating. So at the moment I'm scrambling trying to just find objects, and like there's this set dressing from Get Famous that I can use to create this abandoned look where we've got a hole in the floor. So I can kind of make it look decorated a lot faster by using objects like this, and then just have some sparse decorations and mainly focus on the magical upstairs and then this base area where you come in. And I walled it off so that it has now has indoor lighting, so I do have to fix the parts of the rocks that look black. Like you see here, some of the rocks are looking black, so I do need to fix up these areas. But my thought for this middle part is like the floor has collapsed in, and I do need to put support beams in because you're not going to have this open floor plan in a castle without it collapsing, so I do need to put some support beams. But I wanted it to be completely open and maybe do like an underground, it's not underground, but that underground city type of vibe. So you come in and there's like a little club over here. So I started decorating a club. We've got a DJ booth, and oh, this is in the way. And then like over here we can have some sort of seating area, and I need to find some activity so that it's not just all visual. And then the way that I hid, see these outdoor lighted objects, the way that I hid them is I used these lockers from Get to Work, and I just created some fake walls. It took a few hours because I didn't use toolmod. I just used the Alt key and just swiveled them like this until they were the right angle to hide all the parts that are poking through, because the tone of it tied into the flooring and the walls pretty well. And so I created these like makeshift walls. And then here's some more piping that comes through Arnie's World Edit mod, and I already have them available as a room in my gallery, so you can already download those. They look a bit different in indoor lighting, they go a bit darker, but I thought of putting like a little piping system. It's similar to my post-apocalyptic underground city. That was the most voted build that I finished from, I think I did that video like last year. I haven't been able to finish it yet though, because of all the build glitches. There's some glitches that just won't let me finish it at the moment. I did a video about like 17 different builds and I had you guys vote, and a bunch of them are just glitching at the moment because of all the bugs that we're facing, so I'm going to try and finish all of those. But you know what? I'll probably just do work in progress videos like I have for this one. So this is all I have so far. You guys can let me know any ideas you have for how I can make this cooler, what kind of things I can add, because I'm kind of at a loss for what to do here. I didn't know whether to do like a camping area where some of the people who are squatting in this castle can live. We've got this little bar area over here, probably put in some sort of kitchen. And then, yeah, I just don't know. Let's do like a bird's eye view of the floor. It's such a huge space to decorate. Why do I do this to myself? I love building massive castles, but then I hate having to decorate them. So I think in the future too, because I love building castles so much, I might just build some elaborate shells and then you guys can decorate them if you want. Because I love doing the exterior, I don't love doing the interior, like I've said a million times. But yeah, this is it so far, and in the next video I'm not going to do anything super long. I'll probably just do a quick tour video and have Sims actually tour it so you can see it from a Sim perspective, and by then everything should be done. Feel free to share some ideas that you have about what I can do to improve it, and until the next video guys, I love you guys so freaking much.